Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've got such a wonderful guest today that is an amazing person. So I want to get right with the show and have you introduce her. And we're going to be talking about the Widow's Walk.
Okay, great, Mom. Yes, we're going to be talking with somebody that knows a lot about the Widow's Walk. Her name is Dr. Connie Mariano. She is a retired Navy Rear Admiral and board-certified specialist in internal medicine who was the White House doctor to 3 presidents. Her career has taken her around the globe aboard Navy ships and Air Force One, but nothing prepared her for losing her beloved husband, John, in a tragic accident and joining the 1 million women who are widowed each year in the United States. Dr. Mariano is the author of The White House Doctor and hosts a podcast called The Widow's Walk on Voice America. Welcome to our podcast, Connie.
It's an honor to be on your podcast.
So great to have you on. Well, let's start out by having you tell your story and when your husband died.
You know, I always say I joined the club that none of us planned to join, right? 1 million women every year who become widows. And so it was on July 1st, 2019. We were in Nephi, Utah, and my husband had retired from industry. He was the CEO of a big company, and he was 63 years old and had retired 2 years prior. So he can spend more time traveling, and he could do his sailplanes because he really had a passion for gliding, for soaring up in the mountains. And so he was at the Nationals competition, Nephi, Utah, and he came in first place out of 65 pilots 2 days before he crashed. So he was on a high. It was an ultimate high. And I remember I used to ask him, when you win these competitions, do they give you money? Do you get any special deal? And he says, no, we get bragging rights. So when he had won the competition for that particular task the 2 days before he died, he got the ultimate thrill, which is to get up in front of all these glider pilots and talk about what maneuvers he did to get up there and to complete the tasks up in the air and then come back safely. And something told me, you need to videotape this. You need to tape it on your phone. So I took out my phone and I taped his acceptance speech. And little did I know I would be playing that a few months later at his celebration of life. But 2 days after that speech, he was doing a typical task, which as part of the competition, I was supposed to fly back to Phoenix that afternoon to see patients the next day because I was going back and forth. And something told me that something was going to happen that day. I just felt off that morning. And I was going to postpone my trip back. And he said, no, you've got to go see your patients. He says, why don't I just cancel my flight today? He said, I won't fly with the guys. I'll take you to the airport. We'll get you set. And I said, no. You love what you do. You should just go ahead and continue. Well, let's just do what you had planned. Let's go, let's take you back to your airport and you can do, wheels up. So I don't go up in the air. I crew for him. And as a good partner, as a good wife, I was there with him. I got him settled into his glider. And it so happened there was another pilot who wanted to join him that day. And we'd never met him before. And he suffered from Parkinson's disease and he didn't fly. Normally he doesn't fly. He flies in the back seat. We had a 2-seat glider. And that's how we met him. So I got him all settled in. Both of the guys were settled into the glider. And he was the first one to launch. And there were 65 airplanes behind him. And as a good crew member, I made sure he had his oxygen, everything was strapped in with his parachute. And we had this ritual right before he goes wheels up, before they take him down the runway with the tow plane. I pat him on the shoulder and I look at him and I say to him, come back home safe to me. I kiss him on the lips and then I close the canopy, the glass canopy, and I lock it. And then I pull away and then they hook the nose of the glider to the tow plane and they go down the runway. And typically he looks at me, blows a kiss and waves goodbye. But this was very eerie. This time he didn't. He didn't look back at me. He looked straight ahead. He looked dead ahead. And I thought that was very strange. He didn't look back. He looked straight ahead. And so
Wow.
we took off and I can see him taking off up into the sky. I got into the truck and I was going to go back to our RV and do some errands. And as I was driving out of the airfield, I looked at the trailers of the gliders and they all have tail numbers on them. They have letters and tail numbers, but the fins of the tails struck me as something very similar to tombstones. And
Oh,
so
Mm.
about 4 hours later, I came back. I was waiting for him to land because I would help him, get out of his glider. And I asked the crew because they were tracking them. I said, "Where's 5 Mike, his tail number?" And he said, "It's really strange. His signal is out about 8 miles away in the mountains, but it's been out there for several hours." I said, "Well, maybe his transponder is not working." And so I waited and waited, and there's nothing like waiting and waiting, just waiting. And as you're waiting, all these things come to mind. It was eerie. Part of me said, well, cancel your flight back. You're going to stay here for at least a day. And then I thought, these are the people you need to notify. It was very strange. I thought, these are the list of people you need to notify today. And the contest director showed up and I said, 5 Mike, this code name isn't back. He said, "That's strange because I know he's supposed to, get to the airport today." He says, "Let me call the sheriff." And then he calls the sheriff. And usually in those mountains, if you crash, it takes days to find your crash site because it's pretty remote. But it so happened they had some ATVs driving around. So the contest director was able to get hold of the sheriff, and a few minutes later, he told me, the contest director said, "Let's go to the hangar. Are you alone? Are you by yourself?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here. We have our trailer out at the park." He says, "Come back, follow me back to the office at the hangar, and we'll call back the sheriff." So I'm sitting there at the office in the airport with the contest director, and he gets on the phone. He's talking to the sheriff, and the contest director looks at me and he's listening to somebody on the phone, and he's repeating the words of what the sheriff is telling him. And he says, they found John's plane. It's out in the mountains, 8 miles away. And then the contest director starts to cry.
Mm.
And he
oh,
says, 2 bodies, no survivors.
oh
And
my
he
God.
says, "I'm so sorry." And it was very surreal. Every widow remembers the very moment that she becomes a widow. And I've been a doctor over 40 years. I'm usually the one who tells the family,
Right,
they have passed, but I've never had it told to me.
right.
And you always remember the very moment that happens. And I went into autopilot. I said, "I need to make some phone calls." I didn't even cry. I just said, "I need to make some phone calls." So I went into the next room and I started calling the people who needed to know. So it was quick. It was
Yeah.
fast.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Did it surprise you, your reaction? I mean, you've
It
been in
did
the
because
military.
it was like no emotion. It was like you're so stunned. It was so stunning. It's surreal. And you just go into action. You either panic or you pivot. And I
Mm,
just pivoted, not panic, because I needed to do what I needed to do. And I was a good partner for him because I supported what he loved to do. And I was a crew member. So I said, the mission needs to get done. And maybe that's being in the military or working in ERs. You just got to do your job, hold off the tears. Tears didn't come till later that night when it just hit me that he's not coming back. And then
right.
the sheriff came and delivered several of his items there. I was 64 when he died.
You
Yeah.
know, people are really shocked when I tell them the average age of widowhood is 58.
Yes, it is. It's shocking. They don't believe that. Yeah.
It's shocking to me too. And the one of this, it's sad that he died. It's very tragic the way he died and that he's dead. And also, Connie, I'm thinking here he'd worked all these years, you all had worked, and now it was time to just be
Mhm.
together and for him to have fun and kind of lean into some of his hobbies and travel with you more and have more space in your life to enjoy each other's company. And then suddenly he's gone.
Dr. Heidi, it was
Mhm.
so his mission was done, his sole purpose.
Mm,
Because my sister had asked him one time, this was a year before he
mhm.
died. It was his birthday, and we were celebrating. She says, "What's on your bucket list?" He says, "I have nothing left on my bucket list. Everything I wanted, I've accomplished." And he said, "I'm so blessed." And in the last year of his life, I thought it was quite eerie. It was very spiritual in a lot of ways. We had gone to a resort on my birthday, January, the year he died. And in one of the rituals at this resort, they were burning sage and they gave us a little piece of
Mhm.
paper and a little, they call it a medicine bag. It's a little tan bag with crystals on it and a piece of paper and a pencil. And at the end of our meditation, you were supposed to write that which you seek, a word or a phrase. So we each did that along with the other people. We each wrote a little phrase or a word. We folded it up, we put it in the little medicine bag, and we put it away. And then we had, 3 days of relaxation and meditation, all that. Well, fast forward, he dies that July. He comes back in a casket, and I ultimately had him cremated, but came home in a casket, and about a week after he passed, we had a service for him at the mortuary. And then my stepdaughter was going to bring her dog to our house. I said I needed something of John's that for the
Mhm.
dog. It was strange. So I went into his dressing room, and when I had left Utah, I brought one of his duffel bags, had his laundry in it. And I thought, well, I guess I should do his laundry. I'm thinking, why would I do his laundry? It's not going to happen this. But it had his scent, and it was a
Mhm.
t-shirt. I can smell him. And I thought, oh my gosh. And of course, you tear up.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, I'll give this to the dog. I'll give this to the pup.
Oh.
But at the bottom of that bag, I found the medicine bag from January, my birthday, when we had gone to that retreat. It was a little
Mhm.
medicine bag, and in it, neatly folded up, was a piece of paper where he had written something in January, the year he died. And when the instruction was, write that which you seek. And so I
Mhm.
slowly opened it up, and the top of the page, in its very fine handwriting in pencil, he had written the letters G-O-D.
Wow.
He
Uh,
was looking for God. And
That's amazing.
after he died, 2 weeks later, I go to Sedona. I went to one of my resorts there nearby, and I was bringing my sister and friends. I was packing little bags and goodies for this trip. And in my laundry room, where I keep all my gifts that I have, I found my medicine bag under some
Mm.
tissue paper, of all things. And I had forgotten what I wrote. And I
Mhm.
unfolded the piece of paper that I had written that I found. This was like 2 weeks after his funeral. And
Yeah.
I had written rebirth. We
Wow.
never shared at that time. He had written God, I had written rebirth.
uh,
So he freed me. He freed me to be reborn. And birth is painful.
So you were able to reinvent yourself after he died.
I was open more to media. And of course, after he died, that was July. Guess what happened? We got COVID. Everything shut
Mhm.
down. So
Mhm.
the Widow's Walk was born because it was my way to give back. I always say, may my pain be
Mhm.
somebody's gain. And
I
at one
like that.
point, my accountant said, hey, you don't need to work anymore. And I remember one of the dreams very vividly, about 2 months after he died. In the dream, we had these airplanes. He loved airplanes, as you know. That's how he died. But in the dream, I was flying our turboprop, and I was in the pilot seat, and he was sitting beside me, and I was taxiing on the runway close to where we lived. And in the dream, he turns to me, and very vividly, with his beautiful blue eyes, he says to me, remember, sweetheart, when things go rough, keep flying the plane.
Mm.
It means don't
Wow.
quit, keep going. And then
Mhm.
later, there was another dream where he said, you live in your work. And he's right. He says, don't quit, don't give up. You have things to do,
Mhm.
keep moving on.
And you're still doing them because you're the author of this book, The White House Doctor. You've got podcasts and you have another book, right?
I'm working on the Widow's Walk, the book version of it. Because as I go through time, I learn so much from other widows, like Dr. Gloria, her journey, her story. Because you're never too old, it's never too late,
Well,
you
that's
know?
what I've seen with my mom, Dr. Connie. She's reinvented herself
Yes.
and had this book about finding love after loss, the secrets of senior dating. So yes, you both are great examples of how, although a part of your life is over, you still have a life to live, and you still have joy and new chapters. I'm wondering what advice you would give people out there that are just struggling with this loss. They've just had a spouse die and they don't know how they're going to move forward. What would you say?
If I could condense my widowhood journey and generalize to other widows, the journey simply really is from we as a couple to me. And the question is, who's me? You know, you were obviously Dr. Gloria was married longer than I was. I was with John 11 years, married 9, been previously married for 29 years, but with John, the love of my life, we were married 9 years. And there was always a me, but I think the me that emerged as his widow is a better person. That you realize how precious life is and how precious relationships are and how you treat each other. And everybody loses somebody in their life. But then
Yeah.
who's still me here? And part of it is, how do you give back? How do you connect with others? How can I be the person that my beloved loved so much, right? And to
Right.
believe that I still have lots to do in this life, and to be somebody that the other person wants you to be. Your beloved husband who's moved on loved you. He wants you to be happy. They don't want us to be sad. They want us to be joyful.
I know you've been doing some groups at Canyon Ranch in Tucson. What kinds of things are you seeing there with widows and widowers, and what do you think the roadblocks are?
Well, we started that. I went to Canyon Ranch a year ago and we did their first widows retreat. We had 10 widows. And we're actually repeating it again in June of this year. And I said, bring in some widowers, because I think they suffer silently. Women, widows tend to reach out. We do very well in that we have family, we have girlfriends, we have other widows to share. Widowers, they try to look for somebody right away because they always need somebody there, but they don't make really the best decisions at times because they're searching, they're desperate, but they have to rely on their friends to help them through this. So I always say, have a buddy, have a friend to guide you through this, because loneliness is so painful, even more so. And don't think you're going to gut this out. It's like I have to do stiff upper lip. I have to be brave. It's okay to cry. One of my widow friends who reached out to me, her husband has been gone now a year, said, when does the crying stop? I said, it's been 6 years. There are times I'll hear a song, I'll have a memory, and I'll cry. But instead of crying and saying, I miss you, I cry and I say, I thank you. It's a different feeling then.
I love your little saging package. Are you doing any rituals? Do you do any rituals at your events that might help people?
I ask them to bring pictures or something that reminds them of their loved one and to share them, because the first day of our seminar, of our retreats, we talk about our love story. We talk about the love and the life we have. The second day is about losing them, that event, whether it was a long death that took them years to die. I call those widows in waiting. When someone's husband is slowly dying, you're a widow in waiting. I was a suddenly widow. And then we have women who are unhappily married. I call them wannabe widows. They want to be a widow, but I said, oh, that's why they have divorce. That's why they have therapy. I mean, don't wish them dead, but we all get the news in some way. And I work with them a lot. And I think it really helps. The third day of those seminars is rebirth. Tell me about what you plan. What's open to you? What do you look forward to doing? And they have a bereavement team of counselors and therapists who work with them. They have a medical team to keep them healthy, because there's a high rate of illness among widows and widowers who don't take care of themselves. They
I
either
think
get too heavy, they don't exercise, they don't sleep well. Take care of yourself.
well, I think we should put a little emphasis on that. You do have to take care of yourself physically. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
is I think the statistic is that many people die within 2 years of the death of
Yeah.
the spouse.
Yeah. They
So,
do. Take
yeah.
care of yourself. It's about loving you. You love them, but you got to love you too. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sacrifice. And make sure you get good sleep, you get rest, you get exercise, you take good care of your body. You do loving things, and it's not selfish. It's healthy. It's okay. Take care of yourself.
Yep, it's important to remember that and to move on. Well, thank you, Connie. And tell us about the things that you're doing now. Again, you've got a book coming out. Anything that you want to promote here?
Well, I've got somebody in my life. I met a widower, who met
Mm-hmm.
me 15 years ago, who never forgot me. And I didn't remember him until he resurfaced about 3 years, 3.5 years after my husband died. And I think I go, why do I resolved to never marry again, never have anybody, never date because I was busy with my work. But I guess I wasn't meant to be alone. That that having this person in my life had brought laughter and joy back into my life and companionship. You miss that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people nobody replaces my husband, John, who died. Nobody replaces. But I'm a different person now. The widow of John was different from the wife of John. And the man I love now is different.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a replacement. He's a successor. He's the one who fills my heart now that John has moved on and I've moved on. So we're different people in several ways.
I love that. So I want to tell people, don't be afraid to step out and date.
Be
And
afraid.
online is the only game in town right now. You were luckily met somebody coincidentally, but most people, need to be a little bit more proactive if they would
Yeah.
want to be in relationship. Well, so you're writing a book, right?
I'm still busy with my practice. I'm looking for another doctor to help me because it occupies a lot of
Wow.
my time. It keeps me active there. I'm writing a book. I'm doing speaking events for the veterans and other groups around the country. I talk about my White House experience, but I talk about my time in the military, about, building resilience, finding your purpose, finding your mission. And I spend time.
I love all these things, Connie, finding your purpose, finding your mission, and building resilience. And I think they're such a metaphor for how we get through the losses in our lives too.
It's a huge cohort of widows coming in with the baby boomers. So
Yes.
they're going to need
Yeah.
a lot of support, and it's awesome to know you're out there to help them. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today, and I hope to see you soon.
I hope so too. It's such a great joy. Thanks for all you do to help the widows out there. You're such a great inspiration. Your books are wonderful.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks, Connie, and thank you so much for helping the widows take this journey and walk from the darkness back into the light.
Thanks, Heidi. It's been an honor. Thank you all for what you do.
And Heidi and I want to thank you all for joining our show today. And we always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.